Welcome to Parks and Cons Con Talk, where we bring you news from the very best in pop culture conventions and take you to the heart of the floor at some of our favorite shows. I'm Carmel, and this is my co-host Sean.
Hey guys, it is great to be back. We are into June, which means the convention season is kicking into high gear, and we are excited to talk about it. So we're going to start out with the segment we called Coming to a Con Near You. This is where we hit on 3 or 4 pieces of news that stand out to us. It's not a fully comprehensive list of all the news out there, because that would go on forever. So always feel free to jump in the comment section. Let us know if there's anything from your convention that we are missing here. But these are some of the things that caught our attention. So what's up first?
Let's see. So first up is that it's been announced that Star Trek Beyond will have its world premiere at San Diego Comic-Con on its preview night, July 20th. With the San Diego Symphony playing in the world's first outdoor IMAX screening, the internet was on fire at the announcement. Is this a big deal, or is it just SDCC hype?
I think it's a big deal. I mean, it's interesting because we'll talk about it later, we were at the Star Trek Beyond fan event at the Paramount Studios, and so we'll talk about that a little bit later on in this episode. But, so we were obviously right in the heart of the hurricane there, and it was cool for us, but seemingly afterwards, checking the feeds, looking at the SDCC hashtag, and talking to some people, as people were really, really excited about this. I do think there's a little bit, when you come into May in particular, and June to a lesser extent, a little bit of hype of people are getting close to the Comic-Con season. I mean, as we're sitting here today, 2 months from now, Comic-Con will be over, so we're kind of in that zone, but there's still a lot that's not been announced, and so I think people get a little bit more hyped up. There's things, I know I felt that way before, that there's maybe a panel that gets announced in, early June or something. You're like, oh, I have to go to that. And then as you get closer and there's 5 other panels that conflict with it, maybe it's not as big a deal. Same thing with exclusives, and so on. So I do think that it's a really big deal. I mean, a world premiere of Star Trek, it's Star Trek's 50th anniversary. It's a really cool thing to have at Comic-Con. The fact that it's IMAX outdoors is a big deal. The fact that it's on preview night is an odd thing. I know that's not necessarily our favorite thing, so we have several conflicts already. But no, I do think it's a big deal, but I think pretty much everything with Comic-Con, that's a big deal, also gets rolled into the hype machine and gets escalated maybe a few degrees. I don't know, what about for you?
I think it's a cool deal. I mean, being that we don't know, last year Star Wars had the big performance and all that stuff that happened. So I don't know if this is meant to kind of emulate that or not. I mean, so I was jealous last year that we couldn't do this Star Wars event because we weren't willing to wait in line 3 or 4 days. So, but it sounded really cool. So I'm excited about this, and hopefully we'll be able to make it happen and get there and allow the other hopefully as we get closer, the other conflicts will ease off or something. But I think it's cool. We're both Star Trek fans, so it was fun being at the event, which again we'll talk about more. But the thought of being able to be there at such an awesome thing, and several of the actors are supposed to be there, and I'm sure lots of other people. So I'm excited about it, and I know it's just May, so it's easy to get excited about Comic-Con stuff at this point, but I think I'd be excited about it anyway. So
so clarification, those of us that were at the Star Trek fan event, we were given basically these lanyards and these codes that are supposed to give us 2 people each, so the 2 of us are clear to be able to attend the event. So besides that, we don't know if they're going to do things in terms of tickets online earlier, random draw, or maybe it'll just be the traditional lineup 2 days in advance. We're not really sure, but that said, I mean, Star Trek's a big deal. It's a big deal at Comic-Con. Obviously there's a good connection there, and the 50th anniversary just makes it that much more special. I do think that people often try to reduce things in life in general, in San Diego Comic-Con specifically, into kind of zero-sum games, and it feels like every year, if Fox Studios pulls out, or Disney pulls out, Marvel, whatever, and then it's like, well, is Comic-Con dead? And it's like, that's not the case at all. Is every movie studio could decide not to go to San Diego Comic-Con this year, and it wouldn't mean that con is dead. But that said, this is a big deal. It obviously shows a lot of commitment from Paramount to go and want to put on this type of an event there and choose this location as their world premiere. So it's exciting. It's an apt place to do it at, and we're definitely looking forward to checking it out.
Cool. So next up, Robo Toy Fest just celebrated its 5th anniversary show, and you were actually able to be there. How did it compare to previous shows?
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with Robo Toy Fest / Brick Boutique, it's kind of weird. They go by two names. The con is at the Pasadena Convention Center. This was the 5th anniversary, as you said. And they try to do 2 shows a year. So I believe there's another one October 8th, I want to say. And this one they moved over. So if you're familiar with the Pasadena Convention Center, you kind of have, the main exhibit hall kind of area where you have shows like Scare LA or Monster Palooza. You have the other side where there's smaller shows like Bricks LA or where Scare LA used for their education component. And then you have kind of that church in the center and with behind it.
I don't think it's actually a church. It's like a theater or something.
Oh, okay. And so within that, then there is a big exhibit hall kind of in the back, and that's where they moved this show. And so that was interesting that this show moved into that spot. And so when I was there, I was only there about 2 hours, probably there from like 11 to 1, so it wasn't the full gambit, but that's kind of prime time. It was pretty sparse. It was more sparse. Now, I don't know if that's because it was so much more spread out, but there was more exhibitors there. That was great to see. Robo Toy Fest, for the most part, is a exhibit hall show. They always have kids' activities, Lego building, things like that, so that was fun. But it didn't seem that much different outside of the location from past shows. So, for us, it's always kind of a half-day, couple-hour show. We look forward to checking it out. It's a nice location at the Pasadena Convention Center, and, look forward, wish them the best in future endeavors, and, can't wait to come back out. They do Power Morphicon as well, and Pasadena Comic Con, so it's a good location that they've got themselves there, but this particular show didn't feel that much different. It wasn't like there was panels or things, at least not to my knowledge. You see greater cosplay presence, really nothing much different outside of just a little bit bigger exhibit hall.
And where the location was this year, it was kind of difficult to actually find, right? There wasn't a ton of signage.
There was a bunch of dance things going on next door and stuff, and so it's one of those things where you have several, things going on in a small proximity there. But yeah, it was kind of tucked away behind, but there was some signage in the back and stuff, and it was fine. I don't know that there's a whole lot of foot traffic that makes it way into that show in the first place, but no, it was okay though.
Okay. I assume so. October. And I'm sure they'll keep going in the future.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. On July 9th, Tim Curry will be making his first ever con appearance at the Hollywood show at the Westin LAX. Does this big get signal new momentum for this autograph show, or just...
Well, I think... So I guess first off is saying it's their first con appearance. That's what the Hollywood show is saying. So I've not gone through the archives to investigate. So before anybody writes in, if you saw him at some show in the 80s, something like that. But my understanding, this is his first convention appearance, and it is a big deal. He's obviously a cult classic, favorite actor. He's not appeared before. I think it is a big deal. But I think the Hollywood show's done a really good job. I think in particular since they've moved over to the LAX spot where they've had, Dick Van Dyke. They've continued to have a lot of their reunion panels, but they've really seemed to focus on having some of those harder to find people in addition to the usual crew. So I don't know that it'll necessarily signal new momentum, but at the same time, this will stand out. It'll attract a new audience. There's going to be people that are fans of Tim Curry's work, and this is the only place to go. And that's always something when you have an actor that's only at one place. It's obviously a big deal because San Diego Comic-Con, part of its attraction is that it brings people to the only show that they do a year, and as you know, it's impossible to get near them. And so here, looking in advance online, it was $75 for his autograph in advance, $99 for a picture. That's different maybe than what it'll be on site there, but I guess it'll be in that $100 range, which isn't a horrible price when you're talking about an actor who doesn't show up at anything traditionally. So I do think it's going to get them some new clients there, and I know I found for us in covering that show, we've had lots of people over the years tell us that they only have attended the Hollywood show because of our coverage of it, because nobody covers it but us. At least to my knowledge, nobody covers it but us. And so I think it'll be a good thing for them. I think it does give them momentum. I don't know that it'll vastly change the show as we look maybe the next one in September, October, but I do think it's a good thing. And I do think it's something that, it'll give it a little bit more attention probably from people that may not be as familiar with what it is. That said, if you're going out to the Hollywood show, if this catches your attention, just beware. We've talked about before, it's strictly an autograph show. There's really nothing else to it. There's a handful of vendors there selling random things, but it is 99.9% all autographs, and that's about it. So,
Well, I'm not big into autographs, so it's been a while since I've actually myself gone to the Hollywood show. Do they have much room to grow at that hotel?
no, not really. Not really. It's pretty much locked when it is, and I don't think they have any interest in morphing the show either. You know, as they have people literally fly in from all around the world just to get autographs, and it is what it is, and they're pretty good at what they are, and I think it's just that's what that show will be from now till, you know, someday if it goes out of business or ends.
Okay, so they may not be really looking for that
Right.
increased momentum. This is just another one of their hard to get people.
I think so.
Okay,
So.
cool.
All right, so that concludes that segment, and with that, we'll move to Under the Con. And Under the Con is our segment where we go underneath the hood of a convention and look at something really in depth. This time, though, we're deviating from that a little bit because we want to talk a little bit about a fan event that we attended that was really unique, and so a little different. We won't keep the same format of, you know, here's the price and how many days and all that, because we'll just talk a little bit about what the event was. It doesn't make any sense for us to talk about, you know, well, these little hiccups if some people didn't get in, because there was a situation where some people didn't get in because this was a one-time event. So I think it's better maybe if we just kind of talk a little bit about what the event was and share that a little bit. And we'll cut in just a little bit of footage. I think we'll share the dedication part, if that's okay. And so we'll share that. So this event really, it was very spur of the moment for us. We had maybe 48 hours notice, I think. Our friend Kim that runs Outside Comic Con had contacted us and said that she had, gotten into this fan event at the Paramount Studios, and were we interested? And we're both big Star Trek fans, and so thanks to her first and foremost, and she let us take her spot. And we didn't really know what it was. There wasn't a lot of talk. We knew it was on Paramount Studios. We knew that Justin Lin, the director of the new Star Trek Beyond movie, was going to be there. We knew Adam from Mythbusters was going to be there, was kind of moderating. So we had a little bit of an indication of what was going on, but not a ton. And so we kind of showed up blindly, and we made our way in. Definitely seemed like a lot more industry people than actual fans, but whatever it was, we kind of made our way down a long hallway once we were on the Paramount set. That turned out we were actually on the set of the original Star Trek, which was really cool to be there and see what they had set up that made it kind of a mock bridge, mock Star Trek kind of setup. And then various guests made their way. So we had J.J. Abrams, we had Justin Lin, we had then Christopher Pine, Zachary Quinto, and Carl Urban. So basically Kirk McCoy and Spock from the movie. They shared some their 50 and 50 campaign where they have celebrities like Rihanna and Slash and all these different people talking about what Star Trek means to them in 50 seconds. And they did some trivia, gave some things away, and it was, kind of this whirling dervish of an hour of just all sorts of different things coming and colliding there. And I liked it a lot. It was a really neat way to start. So maybe as we kind of talk about segments, what was kind of your highlight in that first hour there on the bridge?
The highlight of the first hour. I think it may have been when the 3 actors were out there. Actually, more specifically, it probably was when they were talking about how Leonard Nimoy, his presence was still on the set in the filming of the movie, and what an impact Leonard Nimoy, of course, had on even this film, even though he wasn't here for it or anything like that. So I think that was probably the highlight to me. It was kind of emotional, and I think even I got a little teary-eyed and stuff just thinking about the impact that Nimoy had on obviously the Star Trek world, but obviously beyond that as well. I don't know, what about you?
That was really cool, and I was surprised that those 3 were there. We knew Simon Pegg wasn't going to be there in advance. He'd put that on his social media, but to see the 3 of them, 3 arguably the main stars there, I thought that was really cool. But for me, definitely the standout was having J.J. Abrams there. We've been in proximity of him at San Diego Comic-Con and Star Wars Celebrations, a few times, and we've not been able to see him yet. And one of the things in, doing parks and cons, we try to collect experiences, and hearing him talk is an experience we wanted to collect. And so as soon as he came out, that to me was a big surprise. It also kind of set a tone for the evening that this was like a big deal, because not that it's not a big deal to have the actors there, Justin Lin, or any of the other stuff we'll talk about in a moment, but to have J.J. Abrams that kind of kicked off this new Star Trek world. I mean, they call it the J.J. verse for a reason in 2009. it's a big deal. I mean, he can be a bit polarizing for some, and that said, though, he's obviously had a major impact on pop culture in the last years, and that was exciting to me, and so that was definitely a highlight from there. Now, segueing from what you said about Nimoy, because Nimoy was definitely at the heart of, I'd say, the whole night. I mean, it really kind of felt like the main point of this night, which we didn't know. We thought it could be about the CBS series coming, could be about the 50th anniversary, could be about Star Trek Beyond. It definitely leaned heavily into Star Trek Beyond. It was really about promoting the movie. But there was also at the heart of it a celebration of Nimoy's life and kind of his role in those 50 years of Star Trek II. So from the panel room, if you want to call it that, from the bridge, they funneled us all back outside onto bleachers, and they did a dedication of Leonard Nimoy Way. So right there in front of stage 32 at Paramount now is Leonard Nimoy Way. It was interesting. Zachary Quinto has had the mantle or the torch passed to him as Spock now in the movie universe, and he was the one that gave kind of the toast and the speech, and it was cool and touching and really neat. But I think this is a good point. We'll let you guys check that out right now.
Fabulous. Zachary, come over here. Hi. Think it would be appropriate if you said a few words on this occasion?
Oh man, okay. Well, first of all, I will say, I was living in Los Angeles and striving to be an actor for a lot of years before I landed the roles that have me here in the company of these amazing people. And many times was I on this lot looking at the map to try to figure out what office I needed to be in order to audition for whatever show I was auditioning for, movie I was auditioning for at the time. And this studio is built on its own history, and the buildings and the streets here reflect that. And they were always my kind of beacons, and they would be not only my beacons to find my way to the casting directors, but they were also my beacons of like where I came from and where I wanted to go. And so to be here now is such an honor, and on top of that, I would say, when I got this role, I never imagined how my life would change, not only because of the creative experience, but even more because of the personal experience and the relationship that I forged with Leonard, and the relationship that he fostered and nurtured in the last 8 years of his life when I was so fortunate enough to be a part of it. And now that he's gone, I feel even more grateful that that relationship has led me to my relationship with his family. And I love them like my own, and they've been so incredible and carry on the spirit in such beautiful ways, and they are so wonderful. And they're all here tonight, so many of them here tonight. His wife Susan, his stepson Aaron, his son Adam, his daughter Julie, his grandkids. And it really is, this is like, I don't know, this is just such an incredible moment, because I know that so many other young actors in the future are going to be stumbling their way around this lot, and Leonard will guide them in the way that he guided me, and he'll do that because we are about to unveil, and it is a great honor and my privilege to officially open at Paramount Studios Leonard Nimoy Way. So let's raise a glass and hold him in our hearts. Now. Yeah! I just gotta get a picture of that. It's my fan, my own fan. Oh yeah, I already toast. I said raise a glass.
All right, so
Raise a glass. Did I?
you did. You guys are all witnessing a little bit of history right here, and you are now going to be part of the historical record of that. If you all look up at the scissor lift, you can't see past the lights here. We're taking a photo commemorating it, so everyone look up and say, Nimoy! Well played. Okay, now, take a look here. You are in front of stage 32, another piece of Star Trek history. Inside of which is another surprise for you. Would you guys like to watch the trailer for Star Trek? I suspected as much. Now, we have a... Can I hand you...
So hopefully that look at the footage there just gives you a little bit of idea, kind of the tone of the night, because we have a lot of footage you can check out on our playlist. We've got tons of video from the night of everything from the costumes we'll talk about and the props and things like that. But we wanted to share that piece just because it kind of really hit, I think, on the core of what the night was about in terms of, you know, that celebration of Nimoy, while at the same time obviously having that new cast there. So did you enjoy that dedication time?
I thought it was cool. Logistically, it was a little interesting, which we won't spend a ton of time on, but it took a bit to get everybody into that original panel room and then to funnel everybody out up onto the bleachers out in the outside coldish air for maybe a 5-minute speech and with pictures and stuff, maybe 15 minutes or something, and then for us to funnel back in. So that dampened it a little bit for me. I also thought it was a little strange that Zachary was the one who gave the speech, that there wasn't some sort of Paramount executive also there or other people. Now, granted, Nimoy's family was there. I didn't see them.
Right.
They were toward the bottom and we were way at the top. So I didn't see them, but they said they were there. So, I mean, I think it was, I enjoyed it, and I think it was very nice that the family was able to be there. And Zachary seems to have had a close relationship with Nimoy, and seems to very seriously he takes his role now very seriously as having taken that mantle on. So it was nice, and of course, as a fan, I'm happy that we were there. There were little things that were kind of odd to me, but I'm glad that we were there.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's all a big publicity shot, while at the same time paying respect, you know. So, I mean, for them, it was very valuable to have the photo, and so, you know, it all makes sense of what they were doing there. And with this being a one-night thing, I'm not too concerned with logistics, because they're just, you know, throwing these things out there. So from that point, then, we all were funneled back in again. We had our phones locked up, and we went in, and Justin Lin introduced, and Adam Savage, they introduced new footage. So really we had two things. We had the world premiere of the new Star Trek Beyond trailer, which all of you watching this have probably seen at this point. And secondly was just some new scenes that kind of were tying into some real fundamental parts. They really focused in on characterization. I think one of the concerns, especially with the Sabotage Beastie Boy trailer with this Star Trek film, has been that it's just straying further and further away from what is at the core of Star Trek. And so this footage helped to, I think, ease a lot of people's minds. And it's always interesting when you're in the room with the footage, because I liked it a lot, you liked it a lot, everybody seemed to like it a lot. But as we've experienced in Hall H and many other places, when you're in that moment, people usually do get pretty excited. So you wonder when you go back outside to the internet is how do people react. But people seem to have been very positive, although people didn't all see outside of that room the extra footage. The trailer in general was well received, definitely the best of any of the stuff that they've shown so far from this film. And I think everybody felt very similar to how we felt with it. It was a good footage. And then the drapes dropped, and then all of a sudden it opened up to this party area where they had costumes and teleporters and thrones and the captain's chair and
props.
Orion slave girls and props, free food, free booze, t-shirts, all sorts of different things. And it was just kind of a party to end probably the last 2 hours of it or something along those lines. And that was really fun to see all of it as well.
Yeah, the whole night was awesome to be at, and again, thank you to Kim for that opportunity, and also congratulations to her. She's now since had her daughter.
Yes.
So congratulations, Kim. But felt very fortunate to have been there. I very much enjoyed the trailer, and again, I'm sure much more enhanced being in that environment, but I liked the seriousness of it, and the extra footage only emphasized that. It felt like a very serious movie, and I'm looking forward to it quite a bit, and I'm sure actually we'll probably see it multiple times, not just in San Diego, assuming we're able to get ourselves there even for that.
Right.
But no, the whole night was great, and being among other Star Trek fans is always kind of cool. There's that sense of camaraderie and community and stuff, and as you said, there were a lot of people from the movie industry there too, so they were a little different. So there were the not that there was the segregation or anything, but you could kind of tell the ones that were more there as fans and then tell the ones who were there more as industry. But it was a great night, and I think everybody enjoyed themselves, except at the end when they did run out of the swag bags and the posters and stuff, and that was a little frustrating because, whatever. But it was still a great night, and I'm very glad that we were there.
Yeah, we've not covered a ton of Trek events over the years with Parks and Cons, and that's not for any lacking of loving Star Trek. It's just there's kind of a lacking of events, as the creation shows pretty much have the talent locked up pretty tight, and so we don't see them many other places. This year on the 50th anniversary, I mean, San Diego has a number of panels, Phoenix Comic Con has a number of panels, but in terms of actually getting the actors or a lot of the behind-the-scenes people, that's pretty limited these days. They're really tied up pretty tightly with creation, and so this was a really neat way for us to be able to celebrate the 50th anniversary in that setting, and now being able to go to San Diego and see the world premiere of the movie actually adds even that much more. So yeah, again, thank you to Kim, thank you to Paramount for the event, and yeah, it was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. So all right, let's move to our last segment, Con Tips.
Okay, so this segment we call Con Tips, and this is where we bring you some tips to help improve your future con-going experiences. Sometimes they're going to be kind of generic tips, and sometimes they're going to be more specific. And this time we are talking about prepping for San Diego Comic-Con with about a month and a half to go. So
the reason for this specific topic this time around with tips is just because this is when, at least for us, that San Diego really kind of comes onto our radar. And I know for some people it's like a year-round thing of really focusing on, and that is why it's so awesome to have the SDCCblog.com there, because all throughout the year they're catching every tidbit of info. And if you go back and look at their articles from, let's say, January 1st to now, you'll catch everything from everything that matters, I should say, really. But that said, for us, with so many shows, so many park things, it really doesn't really get into gear for us until about this time. So definitely the advice at this point is to really start looking back. If you've a past attendee, looking at your notes from years prior, because I know that's something we always advocate, and so if you followed along with us, that's maybe something you've done, but that's something that we start to do at this time, is kind of take a look at those notes, revisit what are things that we should be doing at this point. The other thing, and we talked about this on this show before, though, is finding those key social media Twitter accounts to follow. Definitely now is the time for that as well. And then thirdly, at least in my book, is this is where then we start to search for those SDCC tips. One of the things that we'll do on social media is every day we'll put out a new Comic-Con tip. We'll hashtag it SDCC tips. Other people have followed along and used that hashtag over the years, so there may be more out there, but you can definitely find them there. We also will have a number of prep videos to go along that will all be over at the SDCCblog.com as well. So we'll talk about Hasbro, we'll talk about off-sites, we'll talk about where to line up, and we'll kind of be filling those things in. But the most important thing I think in these 6 weeks is really, as you start gathering. So for us, for example, that Star Trek world premiere is right now at the top of our list of things to do at San Diego Comic-Con. Most likely it'll end up right there in that top 5 things to do, I would guess. But as we get closer to the show, some things start to fall off the list, and that always happens, whether it be exclusives, panels, or any of those things. And so I think starting to keep that list here at that 6-7 weeks out, where you start to make a list every time you hear something, you're following along with us, with the SDCC blog, something's posted of an opportunity, a signing, a screening, a panel, an exclusive, an offsite, and you throw it on the list. And for me, I think it's important just to keep one big list with all of it, rather than an offsite and a this and a that. And then as you get closer and closer, the list gets longer and longer, and then you just start dropping things off there. You start stratifying them. I mean, one of our SDCC tips is having a backup plan for your backup plan, but at the same time, you don't want to go into the con feeling that overwhelmed. So for me, 6 weeks out, it's really about making that list. It's about finding those key accounts. It's about watching those, tip videos or things like that, and just kind of relaxing and enjoying the momentum of the season, because there's going to be a lot of info coming fast. When people feel like they're getting overwhelmed or stressed by it, that's obviously not a good thing to do. Is you want to try and enjoy it. Comic-Con is a stressful thing. The hunt is what makes it all so rewarding. So not to say that there won't be that, but I think the less of that madness that you allow yourself to get into, the better, and you can just kind of enjoy that experience just a tad bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously everybody knows there's going to be a ton of information that comes shooting out, and then as you get closer, it's trying to maneuver and organize it, it just gets that much tougher. So being able to start earlier and keep it manageable and start organizing now your different categories or columns or whatever, so that as more stuff comes, it's much easier to put them in where they belong on your organization charts or whatever, is going to be greatly beneficial, of course. And we'll, of course, provide as much information as we can through the social media aspects and the videos and everything else. And if there are anything specific, or if there are any topics that are of specific interest to you that you want us to cover, or any tips that you're looking for, let us know, and we'll do what we can to get those questions answered and give you our input. I mean, we've gone to San Diego, I don't know, what, 10 years now?
Yeah.
Something like that. So, and we've done the floor, we've done panels, we've not done the sleepover waiting in line for Hall H.
No.
That's not of interest to us, but we do have a lot of different experience, and if we don't have that experience, we generally know people who do and can try to get you as much information as possible. So let us know if there is anything that you specifically want us to address.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Is one of the things we talked about this year is if there's a demand, and there has been in the past, but if there is, of doing like a Funko video, which they keep changing the rules, so I don't know how effective that would be anyway. But one thing is we never really cover things that we don't know about or that we don't experience ourselves, because that's kind of our thing, is not to, you know, to experience it and then share it, basically. So that said, though, we can always outsource, and, you know, we'll be very transparent about that, asking for advice and help from people that have attended those things. But as you said, I think it's important to note for us, one of the things that really helps us in preparing for the show, and I think helps us to be able to give advice for the shows, we've played that game many different ways. We've been, as you said, we grind out the floor. We've helped exhibitors with exhibiting stuff before. We have helped throw parties to some degrees. We've done the Hollywood thing and gone to the Playboy party and gone to those kinds of things. We've done the, you know, the scalping side of thing, of trying to get exclusives and trade them and do all these different things. So, I mean, we've done a lot of different things, and we've done the Hall H thing. We've done a lot of different things outside of, yeah, as you said, sleeping out on the concrete overnight is one thing we've not done. We've been there really early, but not you know, the full camp out experience. But even in that, we have lots of friends that have done that. So we have a pretty decent idea of how Comic-Con works, and it's, I think, why we've been able over the years to help some people out. That said, what's really important to always note is Comic-Con is an ever-changing entity. And constantly things are new and changed from year to year, and you have to always be ready to be dynamic and throw your plans in the trash and adapt to new plans. So we'll share that. We always do our SDCC Tips podcast. Usually there's 2 or 3 of those podcasts. We might take over this show at some point and do that, or combine that somehow as we get closer to the actual Comic-Con day of Comic-Con. So we'll see, but follow along with us, and again, just, you know, try and get organized, try to start making your list, and don't let the moment overwhelm you, I think, is my best advice.
Yep, definitely.
All right, so I think that's a good point to end this episode of Con Talk. So if you would, tell people where they can find you.
Okay, well, you can reach me directly on Twitter at Connoisseur, which is CON_NOISSEUR, or you can reach me directly by email at carmel@parksandcons.com.
And you can find me, obviously, on our social media accounts for Parks and Cons. I man those quite a bit. But in addition, my individual account for Twitter, at @the_con_fluence, at the Confluence. And again, you can hit me up there, although Parks and Cons is probably a better place right now, especially if we're talking SDCC tips, because that's really where we'll have the bulk of that handled. So if you're interested in theme parks also, this show alternates. So every other week it's a different topic, from cons to parks and parks to cons. And so next week we'll be back with the Park Talk. If you're interested in either the convention, Park Talk, San Diego Comic-Con, or any of the types of things that we address in these shows, please subscribe on our YouTube channel. That helps us to know what people are interested in. If you're interested in more in-depth talk, you can always head over to iTunes or Stitcher and find us under Parks and Cons. There we have a podcast, right, almost 150 episodes, all sorts of talk on all of these things, in a lot of times a little bit more depth than what we cover here in the news segments. Also, if you are interested on social media, as we said, you can find us at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Periscope, all of them at Parks and Cons. Really simple across the board to find us. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.